ECM thing and teachers and,
Yeah.
and whatnot. Obviously, I went to ACM as well. So obviously listen to the podcast that you've done with Mike Goodman and Dave
Yeah.
Kilminster,
Yeah.
Pete Callard, Pete Friesen. But then obviously started listening to some of the other guys that you've got on there, which are sort of like, kind of know but don't know, maybe know of each other but haven't actually met. But it's been really interesting to listen to them and
yeah.
sort of just realise how many similarities there are, between us all.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking of this. I often, I don't know if you do this, when you do like a really long drive to a gig and like you've had enough of listening to music, you just
All the time.
You want a bit of quiet, and I just start like talking to myself. And one of the things I asked myself was like, after like however many episodes this has been, over 50, like what have you learned about getting better? And I wish I had a more concise answer than you just need to fucking just spend time on your instrument as much as you possibly can. You need to push yourself as far as you think you could go, and you just need to be super consistent. Like, it just trumps everything. Whether you're like an absolute beginner or you're trying to master, some Guthrie Govan, John Petrucci kind of line or song or lick or solo, you just got to be super consistent with it.
Absolutely.
As soon as you're inconsistent, you just revert back to what you used to do.
Yeah, totally. I think this all the time. And I think that, with what we do, we're sort of like blessed and cursed at the same time, because it's amazing to be able to do, to play an instrument and to have that passion for something. But at the same time, it's this ongoing, you're constantly chasing something of trying to reach a level which is quite often unattainable.
Yeah.
And it's for me, it's not just about, how good can I get on the guitar. Obviously, that's, it's always been like a lifelong obsession, guitar in itself.
Yeah.
But it's music production, it's filming. I've got really into video content creation, that kind of thing. It's a never ending thing. And there's so many different areas of it. My brain just is constantly like, oh my God, how can I? And I'm always like moving off on tangents and like, 1 minute I'll be learning something on the guitar. The next minute YouTube's a killer for it, isn't it? You see the videos on the side and then you think, oh, that's interesting. Something about Pro Tools. Yeah. And then next minute, I'm, full on into learning something on Pro Tools, and completely stopped whatever it was I was doing on guitar.
Yeah. So I think, it's, I'm exactly the same. Like I'll go through, it also depends on what kind of gigs I've got coming up. But I said to my wife about 2 weeks ago, I said, I don't think I'm going to take anything on for July. I think I'm just going to leave what I've got in the diary. Just leave that, because I want to spend time. Like I've got this little studio here. I've got a drum kit set up. It's all mic'd up.
Nice. Yeah.
I've got all my amps and stuff. And I was like, I really want to just sit down and just start like writing, doing some recording, even if it's just recording some covers, just so that I get used to knowing how all the stuff works.
For me, that sort of stuff's essential.
Yeah.
It's essential, like the creative side of it all. Like I find myself I'm very grateful to be able to do this as a job, and it's amazing, when you're going through the times where you're busy and you're doing that work. I find myself sometimes when I'm full on into a job and the creative side is kind of leaving me. I do definitely get itchy feet, and I'm I need to get back into writing or recording or like I said, just video stuff, whatever it might be. I always feel that balance between the professional side, the work side, and the creative side, of which 9 times out of 10, it's very difficult to earn any money out of the creative side of it. So obviously it becomes a hobby at that point. But I think it's essential to try and get that balance right.
Yeah, I haven't got anywhere near it. Like I've tracked 2 drum tracks.
Do you write music?
I used to. I was in my early 20s, mid 20s. I did the whole original band thing, touring around London, recording and trying to release stuff.
Realize how hard it is.
It's a fucking slog. And then I had kids, and then it was, I just need to now, right, okay, I need to earn. And that's it. I need to earn.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I mean, I was even before I had kids, I was still doing like function gigs and tribute gigs and like artist work. And then had the original stuff on the side. And then, since having kids, it was like, well, I haven't had a chance to do it like anything original of my own stuff or even collaborative. How is she now? She's nearly 14.
Yeah. It is crazy. I mean, my eldest is 13, nearly 14. So same age, year 8.
Yeah.
Same age, same school year, just about to go into year 9.
Delightful little childless,
Yeah,
aren't they?
absolutely. Yeah. And my youngest is 11, just going up to year 7. He's actually got his
All right.
first day today at
All right, cool.
testing out at the new school.
What school's he at?
We live in Fleet.
Yeah, I know Fleet. Do you know,
Yeah.
I used to go out with a girl who lived in Fleet.
Oh, really? So you know the area. So
I
there's a
know it,
school.
yeah.
There's a school up the road called Courtmore School, which
Yeah.
is not far from my house. You know it?
That's where she went to.
Really? Yeah. So that's the school that my kids go to. Well,
Okay.
my youngest one goes to a school called Velmead, which is over the back of the house. It's the sort of junior school, and
Yeah.
now they're just about to start both of them
Okay.
up at Courtmore.
All right. Whereabouts in Fleet are you?
I'm on Velmead Road. Do you know Velmead Roads?
No, I know the high street. Is it High Street,
Yeah,
Albert
so
Street, and
you
then
that's it. So you got the high street. How do you explain it?
Clarence
Do
Road?
you know where the Prince of Wales pub is? Or we know where Courtmore School is.
I actually don't know where it is, but
No,
I know where the Prince of Wales pub is.
So where the Prince of Wales pub is, if that was on your left,
Yeah.
and you just carried on past it, a couple of roads along is on the left is Velmead Road,
Right.
and you go down there, and we're sort of down there.
Okay. How is Fleet now? Because that used to be a mecca of Friday, Saturday nights, and I drove.
Apparently
through
so.
it.
Yeah.
I drove through it I did a gig. What did I do? Oh, it's a festival. Was it not Guildfest? Wayfest a couple of years ago.
Right. Yeah.
We finished the set. It was a Saturday night. When we finished the set around 6, 7 o'clock, and I had to drive through Fleet High Street to get home.
Yeah.
And it was fucking dead.
Yeah.
It was
It's
empty.
interesting. It's apparently. I mean, we've lived here now. How long have we lived here? We moved here when my youngest was 1. He's now 30. So we lived here about 12 years now, and we lived in London before that.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting because obviously, I lived in Guildford when I studied at ACM. I'm from Southampton, lived in Guildford through my ACM time, taught when I finished at ACM. I did some teaching work at schools and stuff. And that took me to some schools around Fleet and Hartley Whitney and these areas around where we are now. And I could never ever see myself sort of living here at that point in time. Bearing in mind that I was fresh out of music college, 20 years old, 21 years old. And ended up moving to London like most people do.
Yeah.
Met my wife, lived in London, ended up living in Lewisham, southeast Greenwich, Lewisham area, which we loved. But obviously, when my youngest was then born, we were, for various reasons, but obviously the house was tiny and you can get so much more for your money when you move out of London.
Yeah.
We looked at different areas and Fleet came on our radar for a couple of reasons. One, because it was affordable. 2, because it seemed like quite a nice area to bring up children. And 3, like the schools all had very good reviews and all that sort of thing. So we took a punt on it and moved here, not knowing anyone. Yeah. And actually, sort of 12 years later, it turned out to be a really good decision. It's definitely, the high street, I guess like a lot of high streets, it's kind of, suffering a little bit. But there are kind of new bars and stuff popping up all the time. There's a new sort of really cool Turkish restaurant, actually, it's just opened up, which we go and play music in, once a month or something.
Okay.
That brings in quite a lot of traffic to the high street. But yeah, I don't think it is maybe what it used to be.
Yeah, it was.
There is still a club, but
is that still? What's it called now? Because that changed names every 5 years.
I think it's now Pop World or one of those chains of clubs or something like that. I've never actually been in it, if I'm honest. Every now and again, when I come back from a gig on a Friday or Saturday night at 1 or 2 in the morning, I'll drive along the high street, and it's
just kicking out.
And I don't really have any. I think I'm past that age of wanting to go into the clubs and stuff now.
Yeah, it's strange. What about Propaganda? Is that still there?
Yeah, it's still there. Interesting. I've never actually been in Propaganda. My wife's been in it a few times. I think that I heard from somebody that I met in the new restaurant that's just opened up that someone's about to buy it out or something.
Okay.
But it's this new Turkish place which opened. They've spent like a couple of £1 million on it, and it looks really impressive, and it is lovely, and the food is great. And so I think that's kind of drawing in the majority of people. So I think some of the other places are maybe suffering a little bit, but it's still there, still open,
still ticking over. Yeah, it's strange. Like I also do a lot of kart racing, and
I used to do that.
A lot of the people that I drive with are early 20s,
right?
And I kind of say, like, what do you guys do, like, Friday, Saturday night? And they're like, nothing.
Right, yeah.
Like, do you go out? Do you go, like, to bars, clubs? I'm like, no.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? It's a totally different time.
And maybe it's just they're just a different breed of 20-year-olds. But, like, my brother's sort of mid-20s, and he never really got into that going out Friday, Saturday night thing. Like, they would go out for stuff for a purpose, but they wouldn't just, it's just Friday night, so we're just going out.
Yeah.
And it's just that
totally.
whole, I don't know, maybe it's just too fucking expensive. Like £7-8 for a drink is unsustainable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously it's that. It's interesting how much kids are drawn to social media as their social lives.
Yeah.
And, we obviously never used to have that. So when I was a kid, for us to kind of, you could pick up the phone and speak to someone, but really if you wanted to sort of actually have a conversation with someone, you had to go and meet up them
Yeah.
in a bar or in a
Yeah.
pub or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Even my kids, I mean, we don't really let them have the social media thing, but they have like WhatsApp and things.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how if you just leave them to their own devices, how they are just on it.
Yeah.
They're like drawn to it. So, maybe that makes a big difference in terms of whether people are going out or not. Who knows?
Yeah. But I don't know.
Saying saying that
How do you
though,
meet girls? How do you meet
well,
girls?
yeah. Saying that though, we've done a couple of Friday and Saturday nights at this bar in Fleet, which
Yeah.
we started doing really just for fun. I wanted to just sort of put a little local acoustic thing together,
Yeah.
just a fun thing. We've got sort of friends and stuff that live in the area that could come along, and we've done a few Friday and Saturday nights in there, but it's been absolutely rammed.
Mm.
And quite chaotic nights as well, where you've got thankfully there's security there which can come and sort of
Yeah.
keep it under control when people definitely had a few too many drinks. But it does tend to be a slightly older,
Mm.
you know,
Maybe
30s
that's
and
it.
40s.
Maybe there's just a shift in social activities from just a straight up bar or club to a restaurant.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Yeah,
Who
who
knows?
knows?
But so let's talk. How did you get into music? What was your way in?
Man, I've always been into music, but for me, I started on guitar when I was in primary school. I think probably year 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So when I went to junior
Wow.
school back down in Southampton, one of the teachers played a bit of guitar, sort of folk strummy
Yeah.
guitar, and did a sort of after school guitar class on a
Yeah.
Wednesday in the main hall.
Okay.
So I went along to that. My parents got me my first sort of nylon strung 3/4 size, the
Yeah.
classical
Yeah. Yeah.
starter
Yeah.
guitar thing, and learned all my chords, all your buskers chords,
Yeah.
strumming along to sort of Bob Dylan songs and folk songs, really.
Yeah.
And that was my introduction into it. That
Okay.
took me all the way through primary school. And then when I went into, secondary school, I had a private teacher,
Yeah.
and that sort of introduced me into the more your AC/DCs, learning that sort of stuff. The typical route, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, that kind of stuff is always a great starting point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Green Day, because it's attainable for a kid to be able to learn those riffs. And, it's that, I say instant gratification. It's not instant gratification in the same way that social media is today. You still have to work at it, but it's a lot easier than sort of someone putting a Joe Satriani piece in front of you, going off you go when you're clearly never going to achieve it. Whilst, to play All Right Now by Free was attainable if I
Yeah.
knew my A and D and E and G chords.
Yeah.
And then got more and more into it from there, really. That took me all through school, and I was sort of not really gigging as such, but I had a close family friend that used to play in a blues band.
Mm.
And so we used to go and watch them, and used to get me up and play with them. And I met a lot of other people, young guitarists that are now actually very, very successful in the world of session musicians, amazing players. And when I finished school, I actually went to college and studied engineering, not
Wow,
sound
okay.
engineering,
Structural engineering.
structural, electrical,
Yeah.
Engineering as a whole.
Yeah.
It kind of covered all of it. But I was also gigging more and more obsessed with guitar at that point. As much as I loved the engineering side, and I still actually really enjoy it, and I think that's part of the reason why I do a lot of the studio engineering, is because I really enjoy that engineering side of it.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't what my heart was in I was playing more and more guitar. And so I guess, like probably a lot of the kids at that point, my Bible at that time was really guitar techniques, Total Guitar, Guitarist magazine. If I could, I'd have all 3 of those each month. But I was limited as to what my parents could afford to buy, because they're not the cheapest magazines, were they?
Yeah.
I remember there being about £5 or £6 back then, obviously with a CD.
Yeah.
And in each of those magazines was always an advert at that time for the ACM.
Yeah.
And obviously you had the teacher's columns.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to say, like Guthrie this is Guthrie's column, and Guthrie he talked like the ACM. I don't know if you remember it. He used to actually say it.
Yeah.
And so I was always like, looking at these adverts, and eventually I said to my parents, I was like, I want to go to this ACM place. It looked so cool. So we went up to an open day, and the rest is history. I sort of ended up doing.
What years were you?
I finished in, I want to say 2005, but possibly 2006. I can't really remember now. I think it was 2005. I finished my degree there. I did a higher diploma and 2-year degree.
Wait, because I was there. I did my higher diploma in 2002, 2003.
Yeah, so I might have been year ahead of you or the year behind you, whichever way you look at it.
Right. Okay.
Year after you.
Right. Okay. Was Guthrie there when you went?
He
Was he?
was, yeah, yeah.
So, because he was there
It,
when I was there, and that was
it
his
was,
last year.
yeah. So I think it was possibly his last year when I think he might have done what I can't even remember now if it was his last year or not. But I had him for that year, and then I never had him again after that
Yeah.
because I moved into the degree course and he never taught on that. I don't know whether he had left or whether he just didn't teach on the degree. I'm never really sure. I think he might have left at that point.
Yeah. I think he left and went to BIM. So wait. So was Sam Faulkner in the same year as
He
you?
was a year above me.
Right. So I was in the same year that Sam was in.
Right. So I was the year below you.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, so I remember Sam, and I remember one occasion when, for whatever reason, we ended up being all put in the same class, like the 2-year groups merged into
Yeah.
one. And I remember being in the classroom with Sam,
Yeah.
and I remember him there with the acoustic guitar, and he kind of stood out.
Yeah.
And obviously Sam went on to do what he did.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do remember Sam. He was the year above me.
Yeah.
So you would have been I would have been a year below you.
But I don't think there was years though. I don't think it worked like kind of like school.
No,
Right?
as in, I would have probably been on the diploma if you were on the higher diploma,
Yeah.
something
It's
like
so
that.
weird. It's so weird.
I can't
We
remember
were
how it
both in the
works.
same school at the same time.
Same school at the same time, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That's it's crazy.
And then subsequently, and further down the line, ended up going back there teaching there,
Yeah.
which is, at the time was crazy. But
How did you find that? How did you find teaching there?
do you know what's interesting? Because I loved my time at the ACM.
Mm.
I felt extremely lucky to be able to go and have people like Guthrie and Dave Kilmister, who you've had on here, Mike Goodman, all these amazing teachers. And, it was such a huge learning curve, and I was all for it, and I was trying to absorb as much of it as I could. By no means was I a perfect student, but, I absolutely loved my time and was like a sponge at that point. There was so much information being thrown at you. And it was so inspiring at the same time. And then finished ACM, ended up going out and working for 10 years. And then when I moved back to Fleet, I got in touch with, or I say I got in touch, it was actually a friend of mine, James Betteridge, who was a teacher there as well. And he actually got in touch with me about, he was, sort of packing it in really. He'd had enough and asked me if I would be interested in, covering his hours, which I did, which started off on the part-time school. And then that's sort of your foot in the door really, and from there I ended up teaching on the main school. I kind of ended up going back there to teach at the end of, I know what a lot of your other guests have said, the kind of golden years, if you like.
Yeah.
So when I went back there to teach, it was the end of that era. I think I had a year of that where it was still under Phil Brooks's management.
Yeah.
And I think that under Phil Brooks, I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but I think it ended up in a pretty bad shape, the ACM, financially, to the point where I think they were just about to close their doors.
Right.
And then the new owner came in and bought it out. And I think because of the situation, the ACM he managed to get it at a pretty good price. So I was there just through that transition period. And then a lot changed.
Yeah.
A lot changed, which, I did, what did I do? I did about sort of 6 or 7 years teaching there. And in the end, I left.
Mm. What changed?
It was interesting. The format of the way that the place was run changed a lot. Mm-hmm. So in many respects, it changed what could be perceived for the better, and as much as a diploma course became more of a typical college course in the same way that you would go to any college. So where I went to college when I left school, I went to Fareham College down in sort of Portsmouth, Southampton way to study engineering. I didn't pay for that. It's a government funded course like any A-level course, or in my case, it was a GNVQ. And so what the ACM did is that the diploma course, rather than being a sort of like a private diploma course, as it was when we went there, ended up becoming, a funded course. So the students would come out of school and go straight onto it and they wouldn't have to pay.
Right.
So that's a great thing. However, you do have to meet certain educational requirements in order to be able to run that course.
Yeah.
So I ended up on that course. I remember very specifically one time teaching sort of a whole entire day of just research. And I would say to the sort of heads of department, I'm not the right person for this. Whilst I understand the sort of the importance of researching. These kids just kind of want to play their instrument.
How do you mean, like you had to teach research?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, really, you're just supervising, to be completely honest with you.
Right.
No.
But researching what?
Well, so, we had to do elements of this, I remember, on a degree course, but they would have to research, and I do understand that there are benefits to it. It's just that I think it's the balance of it. So they would be researching, if, say, for example, they're a guitarist, they would have to research one of their favorite guitarists, what makes that guitarist good, the techniques maybe, any of the history behind that guitarist, all that sort of thing. And then try to incorporate that into their own playing, be influenced by it, what is it you like about this guitarist technique? And I understand the importance of that. Totally, I do. But I think that a whole day on it, the kids were just falling asleep and half of them would just end up leaving the lesson. And you could see it happening. And it was such a shame because I was just like, oh God, I just, these kids just want to sit down and learn their chords and scales and soloing and learning songs and that sort of stuff. And there was elements of that in there as well, but it was just really watered down in comparison to how the diploma was when we were there.
Yeah.
I think that we had that. To me, when I was on the diploma course at ACM, the structure of it was great. I do want to just say, actually, that the ACM has just had another change.
I did hear this.
Yeah, there's just been another change. So I'll be careful about what I say on this because, I genuinely hope for the best for the place because there's a lot of sort of sentimental attachment to the ACM for me as well, as I'm sure there is with you. The last thing I'd ever want is to one day walk along Guildford High or around Wetherspoons, look up at that place and see it's been converted into luxury flats.
Yeah.
That would be a very sad day for me. And with the current change, and I'm still friends with a lot of tutors and stuff there, I hope that they can sort of make it work. They're also bringing back the part-time school. I'm taking my kids there in the summer.
Okay.
To go and do the part-time school, because they're well into their music and stuff. And so get them to go there and rock out. So I hope that it changes for the better. And
I mean, all of my criticism of the place that, because I've not been shy about the things that I've said there, it's always done out of, I don't want to just do it to drive a fucking knife in and twist it.
Of course, no.
It's ultimately it's really sad and upsetting because, like you said,
there's a sentimental attachment
to it.
Yeah,
and also,
absolutely.
I think any establishment that is there for the sole purpose of any kind of education, whether it's music or physics or maths or English, whenever those places are closed down, it's always a sad day.
It is absolutely,
and I think I know, and I like you. I hope that if there's a turn in management, that it can be turned around and it could be brought back to its kind of former glory. Because
absolutely, and I think that
it's perfectly set up. It's got everything you need to do to make it a wonderful music school.
Absolutely. They expanded it quite a lot in that period of time that I was there. So they ended up taking over the lease for the Electric Theatre, for example. Whilst prior to that, the Electric Theatre was kind of always, I'm not sure whether it was who actually ran it. I think it might have been run by the council or something. And they used to basically maybe hire it or whatever it was they used, whatever business deal they had, I don't know. They actually took over the lease from it. And then, interestingly, we get the same sort of local little newsletter thing that covers Guildford area as well. And I remember a couple of months ago reading that newsletter, and there was a thing about the Electric Theatre, and I thought, that's interesting. And I read it, and it was like losing £250,000 a year. This was only in March. So obviously, I read that, and I was like, that doesn't sound good at all.
Yeah.
They also had Global House, which was the building next to Rodborough by the canal there.
Yeah.
That kind of was at one point classrooms, but really that ended up all being offices. Then they had over the back, the other side where you've got Tesco's over the other side of the road. All above that is what's called the ADC. So there was a whole area up there. And then if you go up and around by the train station, opposite the train station, there's an area called Billings, which was another whole area which they had got. So they had expanded quite a lot. Speaking to a good friend of mine who still teaches there a lot, I think the majority of that's all going now. So they're going to basically whittle it back down to just Rodborough and potentially Billings around the corner. The diploma students will use Billings. I don't know quite how that's going to work because they don't really have the same sort of soundproofing and setup in there as what you would have in, say, Rodborough. And there are not residential, but there's neighbours which are other offices and stuff. So I don't know, they might have to do some sort of structural work there with the soundproofing. And then Rodborough. They've also now there's an ACM in Clapham. There's one in Birmingham. There was one being started up in Brixton, but I got a feeling that's gone now.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how that's all going to work with all these different places. But to me, I think that I've been involved in sort of higher education stuff now, really since I started at ACM, which would have been back in 2011, 2012, something like that. And I've seen huge shifts in higher education as a whole, and I think the introduction of, well, not the introduction, obviously it's been around, but the build-up of YouTube and online content, which is now available to us, makes it incredibly difficult to pay or to justify paying such huge amounts of money for higher education courses. And if you think about it, if you're going to spend £10,000 a year on an education course, to which you end up, the current one of the universities have just sort of finished teaching in, they started in um, the the academic year starts in September, although they didn't really start until October,
Mm.
and then they're finished in March, April, I think it was April, of which they have Easter holidays
Yeah.
and half terms and stuff on top of that. So the contact time and the education time, and in that period of time that they're in, that sort of less than 6-month period that they're only in a few hours a week,
Mm.
sort of like 8 hours a week or something.
Yeah.
And if you're paying £10,000 a year, plus on top of that £10,000 a year, your accommodation, your food, for a 3-year course, you're easily doing 40 to £50,000.
Yeah.
I can't help but think that there are much better ways of spending that 40 or £50,000.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think if you want to learn something specific, there are multiple courses from multiple
Yeah,
people that out there that will, and you'll get. I assume you'll get a very hands-on, structured course.
I did.
I've never actually done one, but
I have done some. During lockdown, one of the things that I did was I made a conscious decision during lockdown to sort of try and make a slight change in not career as such, but I wanted to get much more involved in the music production side of things
yeah,
and a little bit less on the actual playing side of things. I still do a lot of playing and I still love playing. I'm just literally tomorrow I'm doing like a musical.
mm,
I've been as well the gear set up practicing for that. And I love doing that sort of thing. And I'll always keep doing that sort of thing to just keep that skill going.
yeah,
But one of the things I did during lockdown was a Pro Tools course. I've always used Pro Tools, but like any DAW, you kind of teach yourself it and you kind of
yeah,
get into. And there was a guy called Frank who teaches us. He's based in America. He's one of the guys that actually writes the book for Pro Tools, for Avid. And the course was unbelievable. We would, the way that he structured the course, the way that he had multiple cameras set up, which he could flick between cameras, he could then flick it onto his iPad and it became like a chalkboard. And it really opened my eyes into, wow, this is what he's delivering is unbelievable quality education.
yeah,
At a fraction of the price, and I don't even have to leave my house.
yeah,
Now, obviously, there is a flip side to that. It's all very well if you're learning Pro Tools, and it's all very well if I was to maybe just be learning, classical guitar or jazz guitar or blues guitar or something. But the limitation does come, what about when you want to play with other musicians?
yeah,
There is that limitation. However, I always stand by this. I think that some of the busiest musicians I know and some of the best musicians I know, there's a couple of guys I know from Southampton in particular who are incredibly busy and unbelievably good at what they do. Never went to a music college at all. They just
mm,
went out, met
yeah,
people,
yeah,
and just, proved their worth.
yeah. I mean, I think all of that for me. I think it all comes down to attitude and
Yeah, of course it does.
and
Yes,
how you
absolutely.
and how you make the best of the opportunities that come to you. Because there are loads of kids that I know that went to the ACM that aren't playing. They're doing office jobs.
Yeah, there's loads. Yeah,
What happened? Because you and I went through the same course.
yeah.
You've ditched it. I've continued. I wonder what's happened.
I think that there will always be an element of that in a music course. I mean, I think even if you go back to when we were there, um, it was still a business.
Mm,
And there was still, I remember looking around thinking to myself, there's a lot of people on here which are, in the nicest possible way, not very good at all. Like I was kind of expecting to turn up going, oh my God, everyone's going to be amazing.
yeah,
And not that I was the best by any means, no way near, but, I certainly wasn't the worst.
yeah,
There were some people that were struggling to just put together, string together a few basic busking chords.
yeah,
So, the entry standard was always pretty low, especially if you went down onto the lower diploma courses. But when I remember doing some auditions there. I remember one instance in particular, which sort of always haunts me a little bit. Like when I was there, one of my teachers then on the degree course was Matt Hassett,
mm,
who, sadly passed away a
yeah,
few
yeah,
years back. And, I loved Matt as a teacher. He was a fantastic teacher and an amazing player. He's very inspirational. And then obviously I left ACM. I went out. I was working for the best part of 10 years, came back teaching and some of the teachers that were there when I was a student were still there. And it was quite interesting. I remember going back to ACM now as a teacher and feeling, almost a little bit sort of, very proud to suddenly be in that position as a teacher because, I had so much respect for the teachers before me, but also like a little bit kind of nervous, because you're potentially trying to live up to such high expectations of,
Yeah.
the teachers before you are people like Guthrie and Dave Kilminster, and how can I possibly compete on the same stage? Like, it seems ridiculous. But then, and I remember very specifically, Matt Haslett actually came back to ACM for a little bit. So he had gone to teach somewhere else, and he came back to ACM for a little bit. And I'd been there now maybe about a year or two, so I'd settled in. I was, okay at this point. I was, I'd got past that sort of like living up to expectation thing. And I remember very specifically, Matt came, and we used to do these open days on a Sunday where we had to do the auditions. People would come, they would have a look around the ACM, and we'd do these auditions. And I remember doing a few of these open days, and I remember turning a couple of people away, saying, they just used to have an iPad with this tick box system.
Yeah. How
good were they at particular things? Write a little comment. Is it a yes or no? And I remember it was a few that I turned away, and then I'd get a phone call the following week saying, why did you turn that student away? In this instance, you just got to put them on this course. So basically, what they was essentially saying to you was, you don't turn anyone away. You just basically put them onto this course. And I remember then Matt turning up. It was lovely to see Matt again. We had a bit of a catch up, and then Matt didn't really know the new sort of auditioning process at that point, because he hadn't been there for a few years, and it was a whole new system. So
and Matt turned everyone away.
Well, so Matt essentially ended up having to shadow me on an audition.
Yeah.
So I would basically be doing the audition. Matt was sitting in shadowing me so he could just watch how the system worked. So I was essentially showing Matt how the system worked so that he could then go off and do his own ones. And this particular kid that turned up was nowhere. It was awful.
Yeah.
And he's playing and the timing was wrong. He couldn't stay on a click, the whole thing. He was basically, you would go as far as to say he wasn't really a guitarist. And I could see Matt looking at me. And then at the end, I had to basically say, yeah, okay, you're in. And I could see Matt was almost stunned by it, and the kid walked out, and I felt so embarrassed because I knew what Matt was thinking, and at that point, I mean, I spoke to him afterwards, but that was that initial point where I was thinking he must just think I'm an absolute idiot, and it was so embarrassing at the time because I had so much respect because obviously he was my teacher, and it's like, but anyway, it was, kind of laughed it off and stuff, but that was essentially the model, just anyone can come.
Yeah, and I think that I think that's essentially it's wrong because it just drives standards down. And there'll be kids in there who did the 8 hours of practice.
Of course,
they sacrificed their Friday, Saturday nights. They didn't go out, didn't have girlfriends, didn't have friends. They just were running through Dream Theatre lines for 4 or 5 hours.
And don't get me wrong, there were still some good kids. There were still some kids there that were good.
They're put in the same room as kids that can't busk a G chord. It's like,
no, and then they always used to have this thing as well. Like this was always a very difficult thing when you were teaching. You used to have exactly that. You used to have the standard differences. You would have one kid that, like you say, could barely play a G chord, whilst you'd have another kid that would be unbelievably good and just thirsty for more information in the same class. So how do you as a teacher manage that? So I always used to say, like, wouldn't it make more sense if we were to basically stream this so that we would have, at the moment, I'd be teaching 2 classes and it would be mixed ability classes, back-to-back classes. Why don't we have a sort of like a class which is for the, you've got to be careful about the words you use here, but let's say the less competent, and then a class for the more competent, right?
Yeah.
But it was always very much, no, we don't do streaming. Streaming absolutely doesn't work. But my argument would be like, well, in this instance, who's winning? Because the kids that are really good and thirsty for more information are sort of getting neglected a bit and bored because they're just learning how to play a G major chord, but they clearly are way beyond that. Whilst the kids down here that are nowhere near, they're getting left behind. So really there's a handful in the middle that are maybe benefiting from this. Whilst if we could kind of split this, then everyone could learn at their own pace, and that would benefit everyone. This lot would learn at the speed they want to learn, and this lot would learn at the speed they want to learn. But it would never really, unfortunately, it was always frowned upon.
Yeah,
that.
I find it interesting. Like when you listen to like schools in Sweden and in Finland, who are kind of always at the top of like the education system when they score how well students do academically. They never have split. They never split the class up. You never have the good kids in top set and then the bottom set. All the kids are together, and I'm just fascinated as to how that works.
Yeah,
and how they manage to teach.
How they manage to do it. I mean, and I guess that there is a lot to there's probably more behind it than the simplistic sort of view of mine. Well, let's just split them into two: good kids, not so good kids.
Yeah.
It is quite a simplistic approach if you think about it like that.
Yeah.
It makes the teacher's life a lot easier and potentially makes their life easier. But I do understand that there are other implications behind doing that, which I never really looked into. But so I understand there are arguments for not streaming.
Yeah.
However, all I would say is that there were definitely a lot of kids that would be incredibly frustrated, which is,
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about music education till the fucking cows come home.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I know. Yeah.
So what's your? I mean, you said that you've got shows coming up. You're doing music production. I saw you've got a music production course coming out.
I have, yeah. So
what I wanted to ask you was like, what does practicing look like today?
Yeah, totally.
Especially with two kids.
I know, right? I mean, for the last couple of days, I've been doing this, musical theatre show and going through that. And I mean, that in itself is practice.
Yeah.
I mean,
what show is it?
It's Shrek.
Okay. Oh,
Shrek.
Is that up in town?
No, it's not. It's got a pad for it here. It's pretty hefty old pad, actually. No, it's just a school production thing. It's like a big private school. There's a friend of mine who is the head of music there, and he's booked a whole bunch of pro musicians onto it. So it should be a bit of fun. It's only for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
But I used to do quite a bit of show stuff before. I never did like West End. I never got into it that much, but I used to do sort of like more amateur production things, pantomime, that kind of thing. The Farn and Maltings, the theatre over in Guildford. Those sort of things. And I actually really enjoy doing it. So a friend of mine called me up to see if I'd be interested in doing this. And I thought, yeah, why not? So, I mean, that in itself, to answer your question, is practice. Just going through the pads. I've been sitting here. And it's not just practice. I guess it's like all these things. I've never ever... There's not much in a show, in theatre shows. There are some tricky bits at points. But there's not much of it which is like super hard to play. The majority of it is, sometimes the hardest bit is just counting 52 bars of silence.
Fucking hell.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, and that in itself is a skill.
Yeah.
And especially when it can be quite orchestral and it's quite hard to fill the meter in that 52 bars of silence.
God, I know.
It's that sort of thing. And so it's just, even like running through this pad, that kind of thing to me is practice.
Yeah.
So for me, practice is very much, I do sometimes go down the YouTube rabbit hole a little bit. I try not to, but I try to be disciplined and not get distracted by the videos on the side. I actually make the video full screen so I can't see the videos down the side. Yeah. There's a couple of really, really good sort of jazz guitarists who have really structured content all on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I follow that through. Just learning little extra bits. I was just learning the other day, just going through stuff that you kind of know, but maybe you know it, but maybe you couldn't, like everything. We could all know it better. I was going through like altered scale stuff and just trying to play a little bit more outside over a 5 chord and those kind of things. Sometimes you just pick up 1 or 2 licks from some of these guys, and then you actually can see the maths behind the lick and how it's working, and that sparks. Oh, I get this. And from that point onwards, you're kind of on your own a little bit. You can kind of do it yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things one of your lecturers, one of your guests said. I can't remember which one it was, but one of the things about ACM, I can't remember who it was who said it. One of your guests said, quite rightfully said, that one of the things about ACM is it leaves you in a position where you can kind of teach yourself. So you could watch a YouTube video and somebody will give you some information. You don't necessarily even need to watch the whole video because you know what they're talking about, and you can go, I get that. Right, now let me do it.
Yeah. It's like playing over 5-to-1 chords. I mean, I'm not a jazz guitar player, but like every now and again, I'll think, do you know what? I'll just try and learn one line. Let's just find one line, because I'm tired. I get sick of like 50 jazz licks you should learn. So I don't need 50. I need one, and I need one that I can use and I like the sound of.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's just find one. And then I had a great lesson. I'm sorry, this feels like it's a fucking advert for the ACM, but I had a great lesson with. Did you ever have Andy Jones?
Yes, he was Andy Jones and Matt Haslett were my main teachers for the whole
Jones,
2 years.
We had him we had twice, I think, a cover lesson. He was terrifying.
He's a very, very knowledgeable player.
Terrifying player, but a terrifying person as well. Really intimidating.
Yeah.
But anyway, he showed us a lick. He brought in one lick and he's like, this is a Larry Carlton lick from some tune. It's a 5-to-1. It's really cool. He said, you could go away and you could learn that and you could store that in your bank of 5-to-1 licks. but you could turn this one lick into 10. Easy. He said, all we're going to do is we're going to look at the notes that sit over the 5 chord, and I'm just going to invert 2 of them. That's it. I'm just going to invert these 2. And he played the lick. It was slightly different. He said, now I'm going to invert these 2 notes. And so now I'm going to invert the lines. How am I going to resolve it? I can resolve to the 1, the 3, the 5. I can even resolve to the 7 if I'm feeling particularly saucy. But just start taking lines and just turn them backwards. Play them backwards.
100%.
Play them inside out. Play them invert each note. So the first note becomes the second note. The second note becomes the first note. The third note. Just start fucking around with it.
Yeah.
As soon as you
absolutely.
start fucking around with it, you take one lick, which you can turn it into 10 easy.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow. And
it's true.
All of a sudden, those 50 blues licks, everyone should know, becomes kind of redundant.
Absolutely.
Or you see that 50 blues licks is actually 500 blues licks. Yeah.
Andy was a very knowledgeable guitarist, and I had Andy for 2 years along with Matt Haslett. They were my main 2 teachers on the degree. We kind of got assigned. It was Matt Haslett, Andy Jones, and Giorgio. They were the sort of 3 lecturers that we had, and I learned a lot from Andy. And yeah, like you say, he was terrifying in as much as that. He wouldn't be afraid to say to you, "It's not good enough."
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're nowhere near the standard. My 6-year-old kid could do it better than that. It's that kind of thing, and we wouldn't be afraid to sort of put you down, but in a way which to me was meant in with best intentions, and always. And I used to, a lot of the time, I'd be like, yeah, I've got to be honest, he's right. I'm not on this as much as I need to be. I've got to go back and practice.
Yeah.
And I remember just soloing over jazz charts and stuff with Andy. Yeah. And I still do that a lot now. I use the real book. I say the real book, it's all on an app now, isn't it? Like,
mine's not. I've got
you've got the real one.
I've got them sitting on a shelf.
Yeah,
I kind of like having them.
Yeah, no, to be fair play to you for having that. I did have them. I've probably still got them down there somewhere, but I have to admit I do use it on the app now. So you can very easily just quick change the key or whatever it might be. But one of the things I do a lot is I'll just pull up a jazz standard, and sometimes I'll just flip through and I'll pull up one that I don't even know the song or something, and then I'll solo over it, but I won't actually play it. So I'll just solo over. You start off with something simple. Maybe you just start off with something like Autumn Leaves or something that you might know, and solo over it and try to. So you're just soloing. There's no accompaniment. I'm not playing any backing track, and you're trying to solo in a way that I can hear the chord changes, because I'm targeting notes within the chords as they're changing, if that makes sense. And I think that one thing that Andy Jones said to me is that if you were to take a really good soloist, improviser, and you just soloed the improvised solo, you'd be able to hear the harmony underneath. You'd be able to hear that he's moving because he's following the chord changes. He's targeting the chord tones within different chords. So it's one thing I do quite a lot to try and get better is just solo over a chord progression, a real book chart, whatever it might be. Try to do it in a way that you can hear the chord movement.
Yeah. I mean, I do something similar. I had a few lessons with Jim Clark, and he said, look, you don't have to be blazing fucking altered scales over all these. Just outline, just the triad. Just start off with the triad. Right. Yeah. Now start just do one enclosure on one note, and now all of a sudden it's like it starts to sound like music. It's not.
That's exactly it. And you start to suddenly go from. And I mean, I know you've said it a few times as well, and I've been a big sort of Oasis fan over the years, growing up in the 90s and stuff. But there are levels to this. The Oasis thing is very much your minor pentatonic. It's your sort of meat and potatoes.
Staple your finger to the first or the 12th fret, right. And there you go. You're just in that box.
And I know you've also had who's the blues guitarist? You had Matt Schofield on here, who I've been a big fan of Matt's playing. I've not actually listened to his interview you've done with him yet, but I will. There's an element of sophistication within the soloing, which is a bit beyond what you're going to get with your Oasis. Now, I'm not saying that in a detrimental way to Oasis. Oasis are what they are, and I love Oasis for it, but there's a slight more sophistication in the way of the playing.
Yeah.
And to me, a big part of that, actually, I learned this from Eric Johnson, licks of all things, but using the major third. When you're soloing. So, you just take your first pentatonic solo box, your minor pentatonic, let's just take your A minor pentatonic, the one that everyone knows, and throw the major third in there instead of the minor third, and you're instantly going to get a much more sophisticated sound.
Yeah.
And quite often we're using that minor 7, that minor pentatonic box over a dominant 7 chord, but there's a major third in the dominant 7 chord anyway. So using that major third gives you that.
Yeah.
That more sophisticated bluesy jazz feel.
Yeah. I mean, it's odd because it's not even blues or jazz, it's just the triad.
No, that's right. Exactly
but
that.
it's become so far removed from what our ear hears over dominant chords that it starts to sound sophisticated when it's
that's
actually
right.
it's just that's actually just for want of a better word, that's the correct note.
Yeah, absolutely. So all that sort of stuff, you know, going back to your question of you know, practicing, you know, yes, going through this sort of thing. But also for me, I do spend time playing with a click. I don't really do scales up and down with a click, but I love to just do rhythm stuff with a click. So, you know, like 16th note funk things. I also have an app called Gap Click. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
It's amazing because what Gap Click does is you program a click just as you would do normally, but then you can set the click to drop out and come back in. So you could say, I'm going to have 4 bars of click and then 2 bars of no click. Then it goes for. So the idea being is that you play with the 4 bars of click, the click drops out for 2 bars, and then it comes back in. How in time are you?
Yeah.
And then you set that gap for longer and longer.
Wow.
So eventually you would try and do something like 8 bars click, 8 bars no click. You know, 16 bars is going to be extremely difficult for any human.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm sure there are some monster, you know, players out there that could do it. But yeah, you know, that kind of thing, really working on your internal metronome.
Yeah.
And I you know, I love that sort of thing. I actually do it with my kids. My youngest is a drummer, and he's getting really good on it now. And so I set him up with that. And we'll just play on his little electric drum kit, which we actually got from ACM when they got rid of the old kits. Just a normal rock beat, 4 bars on, 4 bars no click, 4 bars on. How tight are we when it comes back in?
Yeah.
You know, how on it are we? And it's quite interesting because we almost do it as a fun little sort of competition. He'll go, right, go on, you go then and see how good you are. Like my go, your go, and see how. But you can see that it's, for him, it becomes like this fun game, but he's actually getting better at the same time.
Yeah, I do. I've found that when I'm teaching boys, if I can turn anything into a competition or a race, like they are instantly involved. Like I had a kid who was struggling from playing G to D. And I was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to time you. See how fast you can move from G to D. It's got to be roughly musical. You can't just be like hitting bum notes everywhere. And I was like, all right, okay, 3 seconds. See if you can beat it. And for the next 20 minutes, he was like, again. And like, it's like, okay, well, there you go. You can do that at home. Practice. See if you can beat your time. And that's it. You just set them on this little goal. It's a race.
Did you ever, when I finished teaching at ACM, one of the first sort of jobs that I did, guitar teaching, was in schools for a company called Scamps. I didn't, have you ever heard of them?
I auditioned for Scamps to teach and I didn't get it. But
really?
I heard from a good friend of mine, and I'm not going to drop any names, that the guy that ran it is a fucking thief.
Right, yeah. It was an interesting place to work for. You know, I was grateful for it at the time. You know, I literally just finished. I don't think I'd actually even completely finished my degree, and I'd started doing the teaching. And, you know, prior to that, I was working in a restaurant washing dishes.
Yeah.
And trying to do an occasional function gig or something, but certainly not earning enough money to be able to survive. So then they suddenly, you know, got me some work. But I still keep in touch with the guy who runs it.
What was his name again?
Steve Summit, his name is. And they're still based in Aldershot, not far from me. And they basically put music teachers into schools.
Yeah.
You know, guitars, drums, whatever it might be. But he'd written this book, which I think they still use, this trainer book. And it was quite interesting, but it was things like walking fingers, you know, classical guitar sort of thing. Just how fast can you do your walking fingers? And if you said to the kids, right, we're just going to do your walking fingers on the guitar, they'd be like, oh, this is boring. If I said to them, right, you've got 30 seconds and I'm going to time you how many you can do in 30 seconds. Who's going to go first? Like, me. And it's amazing how quickly they're all into the idea of it, because suddenly it's a competition, like you were just saying.
Yeah.
You know, how fast can you say your musical alphabet from A to G and then backwards?
Yeah.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, G, F, E, D, C, D, A, you know, and all these little things, which is actually a bit of a tongue twister when you try and do it for the first time.
Yeah.
And, you know, timing them, how quick. As soon as you make it into a bit of a competition, especially with boys, they're into it, you know, and they love it, and they want to come back the next week.
Yeah, strange. So the other thing I'm going to do, but like, what's your take on getting better?
For me, it's, you know, getting better for me is about, because it's an interesting one. Like, and I think about this quite a lot. Like, I would say that in some respects, as a guitarist, like my technique is not as good as what it used to be.
Mm.
It's still good enough. I do a lot of classical guitar, and the classical guitar playing has actually been hugely beneficial to me over the years for the reading purposes, but also from a technique point of view. It's very different to the electric guitar, but I spent a lot of time as an accompaniment, like acoustic guitar, just me and a singer, radio shows, that kind of thing. And the classical guitar really helps you with that sort of thing. But for me, it's like I say, my technique is maybe not as good as what it once was, but my overall musicianship, I would say, is much better.
Mm.
And I think that that's what's really important is your overall musicianship. And for me, overall musicianship isn't just about guitar. It's also, like I say, it's music production. It's understanding sound, the physics behind sound, all that sort of thing. I spend a lot of time teaching that sort of stuff. Understanding, I built this studio here. I know it's just a log cabin, but you can't quite see it, but there's a soundproof bit here. And, I spent a lot of time researching and learning about soundproofing and how sound travels and, all that kind of thing, phase,
Yeah.
So for me, it's trying to become a better musician overall.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the shift for me was people ask me, what do you do for a living? And I always say musician. I don't say I'm a guitarist.
I now say sound engineer.
All right.
I say studio engineer. And I deliberately say it. In fact, quite often I'll just say engineer. If I ever say to someone, a guitarist,
yeah,
you can see this kind of look of confusion on people's faces. And then they start asking you about, what do you mean? And I just can't be bothered. If I just say to them an engineer, as far as they're concerned, I could be designing bridges or something, it's like, I just literally, I don't, it's an interesting one.
So that's that shift from being a guitarist to being a musician.
That's right.
It's that happened over the last couple of years. It's like post-lockdown, learning to read, getting into doing theatre shows, pit work.
Yeah.
Like I love doing that. Not only because we're usually done by 10 o'clock and you don't have the fucking midnight run.
Well, there's that as well with the kids in the morning.
Yeah.
You write your next day off.
Yes. It's I'm reading sheet music. I've got the dots. There's an orchestra. There's string players, trumpet players, violin. I'm a musician.
What sort of gigs are you doing at the moment, Tim?
So I'm booked on to do the Full Monty in September. I've got Rock of Ages coming up.
Whereabouts are those? Is that West End stuff?
No, it's not. No, I've not managed to crack that nut. The Full Monty's down at Portsmouth, King's Theatre.
Okay, yeah.
And then the Rock of Ages is somewhere in Essex. But yeah, I was booked on to do Witches of Eastwick, but I had to dep it out last minute. I had a bit of a family emergency.
Right.
But yeah, the last year I've done a few. I've done Legally Blonde a few times, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Grease.
It's a funny one, isn't it, the musicals? Because I've done bits and pieces of them over the year, like I say, and I really enjoy doing them. But it's, just like I said, just going through the Shrek one, I would never sit down and put the music on.
Yeah.
I would never do that. It's majority of the time. I mean, I've got it all here on the mixing console, and I bring the faders down sometimes with the screechy singing. It's just like, oh God, it's killing me. But it's really rewarding when you get through it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like you're detaching yourself musically from it. You're getting through the charts.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that sort of satisfaction, that reward you get from it.
Yeah. So I was booked on to do a last minute dep for a Tina Turner show, and I made the conscious decision.
Was that Simply Turner or whatever it is?
Typically Tina.
Oh, right,
it
okay.
was called. But yeah, she sent over the dots, and she said these are the practice tracks. These are essentially the click tracks that we're playing to, with all of the instruments added when I do a solo show. And I made a conscious decision not to listen to them until 2 days before the show. And I just went through the pad, got all the rhythms, all the changes, all the leads, all the solos, all the chords. Some of them I already knew, like Proud Mary and The Best and all that kind of stuff. But there was a bunch of them I don't know this tune, but I'm just going to read it as is written.
It says, yeah.
And then see how well I can do. Put the track on. Right, here we go. This is your first run through.
Is that live on the show as well?
Is what live on the show?
So did you say you did that on the show, or
no? So I did it
in preparation.
In prep, 2 days before the show. I was like, right, let's treat this as a show.
Yeah, and just go for it.
I'm going to press play, see how I get on.
Yeah, that's it.
Some were train wrecks. Some I got through. I was like, I'm quite pleased with that. I got through that one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. Yeah.
And I think that's such a good way, because I'm so reliant on listening to the record, learning it from record, playing it along to the song, and learning it that way.
Yeah.
So forcing myself not to do that and just do the chart was a really good way to see how
It's
good my reading is.
It's a brilliant practice. It's amazing practice. I used to say, again, to my ACN days, I used to bring in show charts, or if it wasn't that, it'd be jazz standards. And I'd just be like, right, okay, you two come up here. You're going to play rhythm. You're going to play the lead line.
Yeah.
The lead line was scored out. How do you
Yeah.
get on? And it would be quite often I'd pick a chart that they wouldn't necessarily know the song for. They
Yeah.
weren't necessarily jazzers, so they didn't know the back catalogue of the jazz
Yeah.
standards. How'd you get on? And it was amazing practice for them.
Mm.
And, still for me.
Yeah.
That sort of thing is, but the whole, like, I'm the same as you. I spend a lot of time listening, working the song out. Off you go. The classical playing for me really, I've spent, did you ever have Giorgio at ACM?
Yeah, I had him for sight reading.
Yeah, so exactly. So Giorgio was obviously a big, and Giorgio's a good friend of mine now. I'm just about to do some potential work with Giorgio coming up. But, he was a big influence on me, especially with that kind of classical side of his. He had that slightly more jazz classical background with the nine-on guitar and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that really, influenced me to go down that classical route a bit. And I still sometimes have classical guitar lessons.
Yeah.
Even now to kind of keep that skill going. But it really helped my reading. But we do this TV show where I sort of like, I do play on it, but not as much as some of the other guys. But we do this TV show for Fox TV where we have 2 or 3 bands in studios up at Rack Studio. Do you know Rack Studio?
I know of it. I haven't been up there.
And it's basically a covers band for, the TV show has just bands playing covers on it. But it's all the pre-production is done up at Rack. The guys there, we book all the musicians in. So we have like 2 complete bands. And they're just every day in the studio. They have to do 16 songs a day. And most of that's done by ear. You have to kind of listen to it, chart it out, right, let's record it, next song. And it's 2 months just constantly learning. And it's I watched the guys do it in the band, and it's amazing, how quickly they listen to songs, chart it out, bosh, off they go.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's a great skill. It's great practice. But yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. So what has learning music taught you about yourself?
God, what a deep question. If anything, one of the things about music for me is, how do you describe this? Learning music for me I have to have music in my life. If I don't have music, I think one of the things I listened to Adam Goldsmith, and he was saying that he doesn't like going on holidays. And do you know what? It was music to my ears to hear him say that, because I'm exactly the same.
Yeah.
I can't go on holiday because I feel like I'm wasting my time. And I think that's one of the things to me about music, what it's taught me about myself, is that I'm so obsessive with it that, it's almost like I don't want to do anything else. And that's not necessarily a healthy thing, and it's something that, it drives my wife mad. My wife is also a musician, but she's a musician that likes to go on holiday.
Yeah.
So I think if it's taught me anything, it's taught me that I am quite an obsessive person.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we probably all are, right? As musicians.
Yeah, I would say that I fall into that category.
Yeah, and I think listening to a lot of your guests, it's kind of reassuring in many ways to go, oh, do you know what? I'm not the only one who doesn't want to go on a holiday, because I don't want to be sitting on the beach doing nothing when I could be learning guitar.
Yeah.
Learning something new, or making a song, or just doing something, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So if there's anything that it's taught me about myself, it's definitely that I'm quite an obsessive person.
Okay. But
I think you have to be in this world at the same time. I think you're not going to get by unless you really are obsessed by it.
Yeah, it's all or nothing.
It is. It has to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's one thing, if you could go back and practice more of, what would it be?
What would I practice more of? I think I'd definitely practice more ear training stuff. I think I'd get more into music production. I think that the music production has made me such a better musician, understanding the music production side of things. If I remember, I don't know if you had this, but I remember at ACM, one of the things we did was a bit of music production stuff. And at that point in time, I wasn't really that interested in it.
Yeah, we didn't do anything like that.
Did you not? Yeah,
No.
and we would learn how to use Logic and stuff like that. And I wasn't really massively interested in it at that time. For whatever reason, I don't know why. I was always interested in recording.
Yeah.
I always had a recording set up at home. I always loved recording. I guess, at that point, it was trying to make, some sort of MIDI drum beat or something, and it just sounded a bit naff. MIDI wasn't as good then as it is now. It just sounded naff, and it just didn't inspire me. But if I'd had my time again, I'd probably have focused more on the music production side of things, because I've come to realize how important it is.
Mm.
I can't tell you how, just for example, having your head in the back of a playback rig 5 minutes before you're about to go on stage,
Mm.
where something's not working, trying to work it all out, where the band's kind of looking at you anxiously going, oh my God, is this going to go? Is this going to happen? Understanding the technical side of it, like going through that, you know, it's amazing how that changes you as a musician as well.
Yeah.
If you can get through that side of things. I also see a lot of musicians, for example, I don't ever want to speak badly of anyone when I say this, but I've been on just like a function before where
Mm.
I've had a keyboard player that's taken his jack cable for his keyboard and plugged it in to the auxiliary output on the mixing desk. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're plugging your output into another output. You know what I mean? Like, have you not learned anything in all of these years? I think, yeah, those sort of things. I spend a lot of time, just even on a function gig. And I say this to students a lot. I spend my time doing a lot of functions over the years, as I'm sure we all have.
Mm.
You got those musicians that will just turn up, play the gig. They'll turn up as late as they possibly can. They'll do the gig, and then they'll be the first one out the door. I've had drummers before where they've gone and the cymbals are still resonating. I'm always kind of like, we have a sound engineer who turns up and he's got some amazing equipment. And I'm always like, okay, I've set my stuff up. I've got all that going. Like, I want to go and learn how the mixing desk works, and I use it as an opportunity to learn.
Mm.
I always do that.
Yeah, I think that's important. And what's going on going forward?
More TV stuff. The TV stuff is kind of an ongoing thing at the moment. It's been quite a bit of a life changer, really, the TV stuff, the way that's changed things, because it's a 9 to 5 job, but it's full on once you're in that world. It's a train that doesn't stop. Once you're in, you've got to keep going with it.
Yeah.
And then the filming side of it all. So there's more of that. Obviously got this little theatre show thing that we're going through and getting done. The music production course for the summer school. The summer's a little bit quieter, which is quite nice because it's just finished. The TV things are like contracts, which you do 3 months, then you have a bit of a break, 3 months, have a bit of a break. It's been an ongoing thing now, really, since lockdown.
Mm.
So the next one is looking like it's probably going to be the back end of this year.
All right.
So again, back up at rack. So some more of that. The summer's just kind of, what have I got over the summer? Just some functions, bits of teaching. What else have I got? Yeah, that's the main things really that kind of keeps me going through. But I'm quite looking forward to having a summer where I can maybe spend a bit of time with the kids, get down to my parents still live in Southampton by the sea. So get down to the sea a little bit and, not be away. The last couple of summers I've been doing the TV stuff through the summer. And so you're literally living and working up in London for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's great. And I'm very grateful for it, but it can be quite intense.
Yeah.
So I'm quite looking forward to a slightly quieter summer where it's, just some functions and bits of teaching and stuff like that. How about you? Have you got much on?
I take the
You've
summer
got those
off.
shows.
I've got the shows coming. Well, there's one September, the other's October. So yeah, I think I've got same kind of thing. I generally take the summer off from teaching, so I don't have any teaching. Obviously, all the schools are closed. Just functions, a couple of festivals. Yeah, we've got time booked off for a holiday, but we haven't actually booked the holiday yet.
Right, yeah. So you could do that.
We're looking sort of mid-August somewhere.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
somewhere somewhere sunny and quiet.
Yeah, lovely.
But that's cool. Charlie, thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome. No, thank you for having me on, Tim. It's been a pleasure to chat.
I really appreciate it. I hope hope the course goes well and have a lovely summer.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, and I hope to keep in touch.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.